We have premium products by concentrating on the high-end, traditional, and low-end segments. Our company has a competitive advantage with excellent design that stays fresh and exciting, high awareness, easy accessibility, and new products. Our brands withstand the test of time. We are Team Andrews.
Hello, my name is Kaitlyn Stangeland and I am part of Team Andrews. Team Andrews is a product differentiator with a lifestyle focus. Our strategy is a concentration on the high-end, traditional, and low-end segments of the market. Our competitive advantage will stem from the superior design, easy accessibility, high awareness, and innovative products for our consumers purchasing these products. We completed 8 competition rounds against our competitors. In round 1, we mainly focused on Able, Atom, and Apple by keeping them in their segments and as close to the customer expectations as possible. It wasn't always easy, but that was our goal. We did nothing with Aft or AGAP as we were looking to discontinue those products, so we sold off all of the capacity for those two and decided to retire some bonds as well. In round 2, we ended up selling all of the idle capacity to lower our depreciation in this round. Our balanced scorecard also kept showing that our leverage was down. This is something that we struggled with throughout all 8 rounds, but to make these numbers higher, we increased both leverage and the days of working capital drastically. Then we ended up getting into the green range. In round 3, we reduced size and increased performance to meet our customer expectations for Able and Atom. We adjusted the R&D for Able, Atom, and then we left Acre alone, so its age can get as close as it can be to the consumer expectation, as that one was pretty hard to get the numbers right to change. Keeping the age as high as we significantly could helped with selling out the inventory for Acre. We introduced a new product called Apple, and that'll come out in the high-end segment during this round 3. We retired stock thinking it would increase our numbers, but unfortunately it didn't. We should have issued more stock instead because other teams were catching up to us with the stock prices. In round 4, we struggled a little on this round. It wasn't our best. We sold all of our inventory out. That's not what we should have done. We should have scheduled more inventory, so we'll definitely be doing that in the next round. We also should have purchased more capacity for our new product, Apple. That ended up hurting us in the long run and might affect our next round. We also should have increased our training hours and budget to decrease some of the company turnover that we were experiencing. We also should have issued more stock, so we'll be doing that as well in the next round. In round 5, we adjusted Able and Atom while leaving Acre alone again to get as close as we could to the customer expectations. We also didn't make any changes with our first new product, Apple. We want that to drift from the high-end to the traditional. We introduced another new product called Awesome, and we purchased capacity for this product as well as for Acre. We ended up retiring some stock in this round and issued a lot of bonds in order to raise our capital since we decreased on the last round. We also started getting a feel for the TQM in this round and spent about $1,500 in each category. In round 6, our new product Awesome was introduced this year, so promotional sales and budgets were made for that. We were still letting our first new product Apple continue to drift into the traditional segment. We continued to follow our strategy, but we increased our amount of stock that we would retire this round. Since we felt comfortable with the $1,500 we spent in each category in TQM, we did the same for that, hoping it would benefit us. In round 7, we were near the end of the competition and things were finally really looking up for our team. Most of the TQM investments were really paying off that we chose to do. We were happy and continued with those purchases for 2 rounds in a row. We wish that we could have increased more automation for Apple and Awesome, but we could do that in the next round. Hopefully this will help us with our super competitiveness that we are experiencing with Ferris and Chester. They're doing really good. Although our S&P was rated AAA this round, we will be investing more in our plant and equipment so we can schedule more production on our products. Even though we mentioned we're doing better this round, it still wasn't perfect, Able is not selling as much inventory as we projected. This seems to be a reoccurring problem throughout the rounds. In round 8, we have impressed ourselves again, as this is our final round. In S&P, we were rated AAA again. We didn't make any changes in the R&D. Meanwhile, we left Awesome drift into the traditional segment and finally into the low-end segment. Our other first new product, Apple, was also drifting into the low-end segment. We increased our training hours again to decrease any turnover that we were experiencing. And our cash position so far was very well still.
Hello, my name is Leslie Kindseth, and I am part of Team Andrew. Here you can see the overall financial performance of all the teams throughout the past 8 years, including the industry average for those 8 years. All of our numbers were either above or respectively close to the industry average. We could have improved our asset turnover ratio by increasing sales. ROA could have been increased through buying more capacity to increase production and ultimately sales. Our leverage is lower due to not purchasing more capacity and long-term debt. ROE tells us how effectively we use the dollars invested in our company by our stockholders, and we could have invested more wisely to increase that percentage. Through an increase in sales and a decrease in variable and period costs, our EBIT could have increased. And our expenses for SG&A were low, creating a low score when that number is divided by sales, which is actually a good thing. Our stock closed with the third highest company price of $201 on December 31st, 2024. Our last year's closing price was $151.48, causing an increase of $49.52 for this year. We currently have 2,342,035 shares with a market cap of $471 million, creating an increase of $402 million in total company worth. Here you can see a graph showing the exact closing prices for our team and the average change per year, which was $20.84. If we would have issued more stock in earlier years, then we believe that our final closing price would have been much higher. We have consistently kept a great rating on our bonds from S&P. We finished our 2024 year with a perfect rating of AAA, the only company to do so. At the end of 2024, we had a total capacity of 6.2 million units. We should have invested more in capacity, especially for the low-end and high-end products throughout the years to better be able to handle market demands down the road. We had many years where we sold out of our inventory, and this is something we hope to improve in future years. In 2020, we began investing in TQM and process management initiatives as a way to reduce costs, reduce R&D cycle time, and increase product demand. We have been a very successful company, and so we believe there was no harm in investing in all the initiatives so that operations in the company were more efficient. We had a rocky start investing in 2020, but in 2021, we understood the process. We invested more early on so high reduction costs would take effect sooner and would be noticeable for years to come due to the investment being cumulative. Over the last 5 years, we've invested a total of a little over $39 million in TQM and process management initiatives to cut back on production costs and increase demand. In 2019, Ferris became a direct competitor with their products in the low-end and traditional segments. Chester became a direct competitor with their products in the low-end, high-end, and traditional, the same segments that we have. Chester was also an indirect competitor with their products in the performance and size segments. In 2021 is when Chester and Ferris had large increases in their net profit, while ours kind of stayed consistent at around that $15 million range. We realized in 2022 that instead of letting our products drift from the high-end segment into the traditional and eventually into the low-end segment, that we should have focused resources on keeping products in the high-end segment, since only Chester was a direct competitor in the high-end segment with only one product. Baldwin wasn't a huge threat to us, but they did have products competing in the traditional low and high-end segments. Digby only had one product as a direct competitor to us, and it was in the high-end segment. Erie was also a direct competitor in the high-end segment, and they had two products in that segment, but both Erie, Digby, and also Baldwin weren't huge threats to us. It was mostly Chester and Ferris we were concerned about. By the end of 2024, we obtained a market share of 15.54% of the sector industry. Ferris holds the majority of the market with a market share of 28.22%. Here you can see the final scorecard for our products in the year 2024. Our strategy included that our products would be priced above average, and we have products in the traditional low-end and high-end segments. Since price is one of the top two buying criteria for low-end and traditional segment products, the overall score is always going to be a C for us. This makes getting an overall score of above a C to be very difficult, even if every other category besides price got an A or B. We also saw that by letting the high-end products drift from the high-end segment into the traditional, the overall scores were poor, due to one of the top two buying criteria being the ideal position of the product. As part of our strategy, we had to make sure to supply adequate funds to the awareness budget for traditional, low-end, and high-end segment products. Our goal was to reach between 80 to 100% awareness. By year 2023, all of our products were within that goal. By 2024, almost all of our products were at 100% awareness. As part of our strategy, we also had to make sure to supply adequate funds to the accessibility budget for traditional, low-end, and high-end segment products. Again, our goal was to reach between 80 to 100% accessibility. Unfortunately, our product Acre did not make it to that goal.
My name is Gattey. I'm part of Team Andrews. For our 4-year projection, Team Andrews' company will continue the strategy of focusing on the high-end market segment primarily, as well as the traditional and low-end market segments. Capacity will continue to be increased as needed, especially for the low-end and traditional segments as we continue to stock out of those products. Automation will be increased as the products drift from the high-end segments to the traditional and low-end segments in order to keep our labor costs low. For research and development for this 4-year projection, Andrews wants the products to drift naturally from introducing them in the high-end and traditional markets down to the traditional and low-end markets respectively, while also adjusting products that we want to keep in these three segments. Those products that eventually drift out of the low-end segment will then be retired to keep products feeling original and fresh. For the marketing plan for the 4-year projection, Andrews will be aggressive in both awareness and accessibility for our newly introduced products so that they are well known throughout our customer base. Once the new product is between 90 and 100% for both awareness and accessibility, budgets will be decreased appropriately. Our goal is to maintain an A rating for both categories, which is between an 80 and 100%. The pricing strategy for all the products will remain above average. For production planning for the 4-year projection, capacity and automation levels will continue to rise as demand rises, which will help to reduce our labor costs. Andrews will invest in capacity to avoid further stockouts so customers don't have to resort to buying our competitors' products. We will also reduce capacity when a product has drifted far enough from the low-end segment and we want to discontinue it. For our finance strategy for the 4-year projection, when preparing to launch a new product, Andrews will issue bonds and stocks in order to raise capital. If the stock market doesn't allow us to issue stocks, we would then take out loans. When Andrews feels that we are profitable enough, we could pay dividends to shareholders and retire some stock, as long as we're not preparing to introduce a new product. Andrews aims to stay within the industry averages for ROA, ROS, cumulative profit, ending market share, ending stock price, and asset turnover. We want to get our leverage ratio up, as that's what Andrews is currently struggling with. But we don't want to exceed the 2.0, as that's kind of the green area. We never needed to take out an emergency loan for all rounds of the competition, but if we needed to, Andrews would figure out what decision led to the requirement for a loan. If it were from scheduling too much inventory, we would fix that next round by possibly lowering the price of our current inventory in order to sell the excess off quickly. Then we would have to reassess our budgets and forecasts in order to better meet customers' demand. If we put ourselves in the situation of not having enough cash flow due to over-investing, we would just cut back on investing in new products, increasing capacity, and TQM spending for the next few years in order to maintain a good debt-to-equity ratio. For the first year of the 4-year projection, which would be 2025, following our strategy for R&D, we would increase size and performance for Able to lower its perceived age. We would lower our mean time before failure score for Apple, as it has now drifted into the traditional segment. For marketing for 2025, we would decrease all product prices by 50 cents. We would increase or decrease promotion and sales budgets as we see is deemed necessary. We would increase our sales budget for Able to stay above 80% and Acre to improve its accessibility. It's in the low 50s right now, and we definitely want it to still be able to sell before we discontinue it. For production, we would increase capacity for Awesome to avoid stockouts, and just enough for Acre to get through the year. We would increase capacity for Apple as it is shifted into the traditional segment now. We would also increase automation for Acre and Able. We would order enough inventory for Acre to make it to the end of the year and then finally stock out. For finance, we would issue stock and retire long-term debt. For the next year, or year 2026, the 10th round of the competition, if we kept going, for R&D following the strategy, we would decrease size and increase performance on Atom and Awesome, keeping them in the high-end segment and being really competitive in that area because that's what the customers are really looking for. We would adjust Able to reduce age and then gain market share. For marketing, we would decrease all product prices by 50 cents again. We would increase or decrease promotion sales budgets as deemed necessary. We would decrease promotion and sales budgets for Acre to $0 in order to sell it off. For production, we would increase capacity for Able. We would increase capacity in Apple as it drifts to the traditional segment to the low-end segment. We would increase automation in Able and Apple, and then we would sell our capacity for Acre. For finance, we would pay dividends of $1. For round 11, or year 2027, third year of this 4-year projection, for R&D, we would drift Apple into the low-end segment. We would increase size and automation to maintain Able in our traditional segment. We would decrease size and then increase performance to keep both Atom and Awesome in high sellers in the high-end segment. For marketing, we would decrease all product prices once more by 50 cents, and then we would decrease product sales and promotion budgets as we saw fit. For production, we would increase capacity for all products. We would increase automation in Apple as well. For finance, if able, Andrews would pay dividends. For round 12, or year 4 of this 4-year projection, for R&D, we'd start R&D for a new product to be released in the high-end segment the next year, and then we would have one in our high-end that we have at the moment probably drift down, so we wouldn't adjust R&D for that particular product. We would decrease size and increase performance for the products that we want to retain in traditional high-end segments, though. For marketing, we would decrease all products by 50 cents again. For production, we'd buy capacity for the new high-end product in development, and then finally for finance, we would issue bonds and long-term debt if needed to finance the new product that we are planning.